السلام عليكم دكتور محمد.
عليكم السلام يا محمد، ازيك يا حبيبي؟
ربنا يحفظك.
الله يخليك.
حضرتك بخير النهارده؟
الحمد لله، جزاك ربنا يكرم. معلش
الحمد لله.
I'm glad يعني it's final، يعني المرة اللي فاتت ما نفعش. إن شاء الله النهاردة all is good.
لا ابدا، المهم صحة حضرتك.
الله يخليك يا حبيبي.
ربنا يحفظك. احنا جاهزين، ممكن نبدأ؟
طيب، آه، دقيقة بس أفتح
اتفضل.
أنا I can share، مش كده؟
طبعا يا دكتور.
طيب.
كويس كده.
طيب.
وفي
Here
الأول
is
هعرف حضرتك
طيب.
وبعد كده نسمع حضرتك.
طيب أوكي.
شكرا جزيلا. السلام عليكم، أهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم جميعا في محاضرة النهاردة هنتعلم إزاي نحقق حياة أكاديمية وعلمية ناجحة مع ضيفنا المتميز دكتور محمد علي فراج. دكتور فراج أسوسييت بروفيسور في كلية الصيدلة جامعة
لا
القاهرة.
لا لا، فول على فكرة، ده من زمان بس أنا ما بغيرش
ما شاء
التايتل. أنا بقالي
الله.
7 سنين.
تمام، فول بروفيسور. هو أنا جبتها من آخر بايوجرافي لحضرتك.
يلا مش مشكلة.
طيب. دكتور فراج حصل على الدكتوراه عام 2003 من جامعة تكساس تيك يونيفرسيتي في الولايات المتحدة. بعدها دكتور فراج عمل دراسات بوست دوك في كل من سامويل نوبل فاونديشن وجيمس جراهام براون كانسر سنتر في الولايات المتحدة. في الفترة خلال 2009 ل 2010 دكتور فراج عمل كأستاذ زائر في تكنيكال يونيفرسيتي اوف ميونخ بألمانيا. دكتور فراج حصل على جوائز عديدة، هنذكر منها Egyptian Higher State Incentive Award 2012، كايرو يونيفرسيتي انسنتيف أوورد عام 2009، جائزة الدولة للتفوق في العلوم الأساسية عام 2008، كايرو يونيفرسيتي ساينتفك بابليكيشن أوورد عامي 2007 و2008، ماس سبكتروسكوبي بيرفورمانس أوورد عام 2014 من الولايات المتحدة. كمان دكتور فراج عضو في العديد من الهيئات الدولية زي التواس أكاديمي، جلوبال يانج أكاديمي، وكمان أحد مؤسسي الأكاديمية المصرية لشباب العلماء إياس. ودكتور فراج بيعمل مانجينج إديتور أو المحرر المسؤول لمجلة جورنال اوف ادفانسد ريسيرش التي تنشر بواسطة دار النشر السفير. أهلا وسهلا بحضرتك دكتور محمد.
شكرا يا محمد على التقديم and for all the audience. اسمح لي بس ثانية. one minute. طيب I would يعني إن شاء الله كده I would speak هو I will not speak at all لأن هي slides are explaining themselves يعني زي ما بيقولوا، بس I would rather stick to the English عشان I think إن أنا I have invited students from the AUC and they are not they are لا يتحدثون العربية، فإن شاء الله bear patient. يعني we'll spend إن شاء الله with each other around 80 minutes exploring. يعني not that my career was successful was okay الحمد لله عقبالكم جميعا، بس I learned from other people mistakes and myself and I would give you a recipe at the end. I call it the dark side in academia and lessons from being in academia now for 25 years. By the way يعني أنا ساعات كتيرة بعمل science nights on general topics and this presentation was given before I recall maybe a couple of months ago. And if you can want to follow يعني we typically every couple of months بنعمل science nights من خلال ال AAC. طبعا life in academia يعني what people think this is what everyone from outside academia think, that it's gonna be work, social and sleep. بس the reality is much more different عشان نبقى واقع. To be realistic, it has all of that. Lab, reading, writing. It's too much. طيب. So the reality is different from what people would think, especially from outside academia. Who is the speaker؟ هو محمد الدلني و there is no more. أنا محمد فراج في كلية صيدلة جامعة القاهرة، وحاليا أستاذ زاير في الجامعة الأمريكية. وهو زي ما this is my ResearchGate account and ده بقول عليه زي الفيسبوك where non-scientists socialize and this is how we socialize as well. Contribution. I specialize myself. أنا مش هتكلم على الساينس بتاعي خالص النهارده بس I will give a very brief in few minutes. And I specialize in the quality control of functional foods using metabolomics. Functional foods are all the foods that we take beyond nutrition. And typical case would be coffee and tea. Metabolomics دي برضه حاجة is a new technology. Maybe some of you have heard. احنا we are all in the omic era and we are no longer interested in targeted things or targeted chemical or targeted gene. I give this simple example for you to know. يعني if you are unfortunately diagnosed by being diabetic, you are measuring your glucose and glucose is high in your body. But this is what we call a chemical analysis or a single metabolite analysis. But if you are measuring the hundreds and thousands of chemicals inside your body, this is what's called an omic. Omic stands for all, by the way. So this is an omic analysis. It has so many applications. It's typically يعني looks at the detail. فيعني someone would say I see a tree. إنما if we zoom, we see much more different things. So again, we have the targeted and the untargeted analysis. إيه الapplication بتاعت الomics? We can use the omics to look at genetic factor, age, environment, disease, COVID, non-COVID, drug, AstraZeneca versus Pfizer, how would it affect your metabolism, nutrition, lifestyle, and etc. And all of these changes are seen less at the gene and the protein level, but most of the changes appear at the metabolomic level. We started to use metabolomics very recently, working with archaeologists in excavation sites, exploring the Egyptian food and treasures that they discover in the tombs. So this is all for the specific science and now to the general science. And I would like to say and iterate that I'm not an expert, I'm an amateur. I've never ever taken any workshop in the topic. It all comes out from experience, but not really academic training in the topic. Again, I serve on the editorial board of a couple of journals, including JAR, of course. يعني typically طبعا with the pandemic we have to revert to the online, بس I really prefer الواحد خلاص نسي الأوفلاين ده and where we interact more with the audience, but I will try as much as I can through the chat system as you would see. And if you have any question, you can raise at the end. الidea بتاعت التوبيك النهارده came a couple of years ago إن أنا I am the graduate program director at the AUC for chemistry. And I realized that there are soft skills that most graduate students lack, and they don't take it in any course. And they are important skills, and they last more important than the course itself. Yani be it that you are taking a course in pharmacy, a course in inorganic chemistry, they don't tell you certain things that you would need for your lifetime career. So I started to give my students, and I knew one of them is here, Dua Baha. I give them sessions, how to write a scientific paper, which is important, how to do research the right way, how to give a dynamic presentation, how to write a professional email. I see many problems with emails that can affect your image, how to make an appealing poster. This one I give this semester. Maybe some of you would remember this movie. It's called What Women Want by Mel Gibson. And I call it What Grant Reviewers Want. What's a review paper? And this is one of my favorite. And I urge all of the professors who are joining, if you have kins, you have a golden mine in your student, and maybe many times we assign our students to write a report, and it's just graded. But if the report is written in a good way, and all the students work together on one theme, you can publish such a report and be it a review per se. And this would sharpen the writing skills of your students, and during which the student as well get to develop how to judge any scientific paper. يعني this is the real come out couple, and we have many others, but this is the most favored. يعني let me tell you that these review papers, and one of them are sitting among us, are students who have never ever written anything in their lifetime before, and they did publish in a very prestigious journals on topics that they haven't learned about before as well. So I'm not saying with my guidance, but they did a great effort. But again, you can get out a lot from graduate courses beyond a grade at the end. Yeah. And one of the heroes in common in both is Dr. Amira Khattab, which is my colleague. She helped a lot in wrapping the work. Effective emailing technique is one of my talks as well. So today, we don't have much time to talk about everyone in specific. What I have decided, and then I will give you the recipe in a short while, and I will combine all talks in just one, and I hope it will be dynamic. The good news, and then I will not speak much, and you will watch more. And it's gonna be a movie style. So we are casting the scene today. We are May 4th on the Zoom. And we have a hero, a film or a movie, and our hero today is the rat. And the director, of course, is myself. The rat and the apple are the heroes, and the producer is myself, Muhammad Farah. This presentation is made up of 207 slides. فطبعا you would say it's gonna be long. Like it will take 60 minutes as promised, and every slide will take only 4 seconds. So it has, and I'm not gonna cut slides. So it's gonna be a silent movie. يعني not too, but best I can. So let's open the scene and show you your road in academia after your undergrad degree. So you join academia and you are typically in your master or in your PhD, and you are asked to study for more courses based on the branch you decide to study. So you have to do coursework and you have to do research, of course. And the thing that stays with you till the end of your academic career at my stage per se is the writing. So you're writing your thesis when you're young, you're writing your paper, you're revising student papers. So papers writing is something that continues till the end, yeah. And I'm a biochemist a bit, and this is the academic, we all know the several biochemical pathway and metabolism inside our body. And this is our metabolism in academia. We enter from undergrad to graduate student, we take a thesis, and then we become PhD holder. And then we join academia to become instructor or lecturer, or mudarris, like we call in Egypt. Then you are promoted to an assistant professor, and then you supervise more graduate students to become associate professor, and then do more publications, sabbatical, writing books to qualify for a professor, which is my stage, and you can become a chairman if you wish at that stage where colleagues become enemies. So don't be a chairman. As we know in the biochemistry, we have shunts, and you can divert your career. So after the PhD, you can go to industry aside from academia, and this is comparable to the NIH shunt, and maybe get more money than in academia, etc. So in all of these pathways or all of these steps, you are like a rat. We are all like rats, myself, and we try to escape the bottleneck. In the first step, as PhD students or master students, you have 2 bottlenecks to pass. You have to pass your coursework, and you have to do your research. Then you defend your degree. And our job as academics are to open the bottle for you and release you in the best way ever. I always say it, a student can be the best by the instructor, by his mentor, or to get the worst out of him. So I will give you some helpful tips in that. I call it framework to success, but great success, hopefully. احنا بقى النهارده we will stop at each station. We are like on a train, so I will speak a bit about about courses and how to deal with courses in graduate school in a different way. Then I will give you a tip on research, presentation, and writing. يعني unfortunately we have to admit in the MENA region in Africa in our case that we have an education research gap. Our students enter graduate schools and they have never done research before in reality. This is the case, the black side we must admit in our region. So, and it has many reasons, and maybe as well, I'm not saying that the students are the reason, but it's a multiplex issue. Professor would think undergraduate required training, faculty time is rather very limited, and the resources as well, and as well, the research benefits are not clear for students at this stage. What I always urge my students is to expand the horizon. يعني per se, especially in graduate school, if you are a biologist or a chemist, learn something extra. Learn programming. If you are an engineer, learn the opposite. I know that in this world we go for people who are talented and skilled in a subject, but expanding your horizon would really help you along your career. Help you to talk to other disciplines to accomplish better. You have chosen to study science, so specialization is important, and you have to be well-rounded about other fields and to integrate your ideas into other people research. يعني you can, when I was at graduate school in the United States a couple of years, I used to read this magazine. I'm not so sure if I don't read it anymore, to be frank. يعني, but New Scientist is a very nice magazine. It's free. I used to have it, and it's a very open, general science magazine that you would enjoy reading it. Yeah. Again, in academia, talk to people from different fields and ask them why they choose to work in that field. We are very good in the apple orange, but we are not good in the orange language. Apple language is when we communicate among ourselves, speaking to scientists. And part of the thing that I really endeavor since coming back to Egypt is science communication and simplification. تبسيط العلوم يعني. We have to speak the language of the oranges to the public. So practice science communication and lay people because you don't live alone. Networking is important. In graduate school, if you have an idea, share it with others. Don't ever be afraid that speaking about your own idea someone would steal it. This can, but it can happen, but it should not be the thing that you are thinking of all the time. ده هيخليك تتأخر قوي 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 قوي. Don't be afraid of running out of ideas. طبعا everyone would say, how would I start having my ideas on my own? There are a lot of resources around us. Sometimes we just need to find the right one. And I exemplify it by this researcher who has all the resources, but is not knowing how to doesn't know how to use them in the right way. When research, محدش يقول it's a small research point or it's a big research point. All research is important equal, be it basic science or be it applied science. As I always tell my students in searching papers for ideas, if you don't have an idea, you have two ways. One way is to read the review paper, like what we do, because this would give you the whole theme of the work done in the field you want to work upon, or visit a conference. Review papers might be a shortcut. But in searching for papers for ideas, don't rely on titles and abstract. They might be misleading. In Egypt احنا عارفين الكوت الشهير اللي هو الجواب يبان من عنوانه. The letter can be understood from its output. But I disagree and I say yes, الجواب مش بيبان من عنوانه. The problem is that abstract and title can be misleading either intentionally or unintentionally. This is what the paper abstract can be. But when you open the paper, I'm sure you have seen that it comes out as such. طبعا احنا in classroom as well we have to get more engaged in asking questions or practice the habit of always challenging yourself by asking questions. Why is that? Why did that work? Why it didn't work? يعني unfortunately, at least maybe it's no longer that much, but when I was an undergrad, I never used to ask questions. يعني I felt more intimidated, يمكن بتكسف. ما علينا يعني, we were not that in that habit. But nowadays you have to be challenging. And no one is born asking great question. You need to know the difference. And this would develop your habit of asking question, of asking research points in the future. As well يعني I'm not standing from the student side. إحنا as academic or professor, we have to accept challenge from our students. يعني I give it this nice example. Long ago, our ancestors saw the apple falling. And maybe this young boy, if he asks his dad, why are apple falling? He would say, what a silly question to eat it. But in the 1800s, someone came and looked at it differently. And he looked at the same apple falling for centuries, and he discovered the gravity. So there is no question that is silly. Ask whatever you want, whenever you want. And very often يعني in graduate school, you have an opportunity to attend a seminar for someone outside your area. Try to attend, even if you feel it's irrelevant to your research. It doesn't have to be that everything falls in your benefit of knowledge that fills your field. يعني. Expand. يعني I have a degree in botany long ago. Maybe I am disqualified now, but and I think of academia like a soil. And students come to us as a seed. Our job is not to freeze the seed or not to be like molecular biologists, with all due respect, إن احنا to clone the seed, to make replicates of the seed. But our job is to have the seed blossom and develop on its own with our guidance. So be it what you want to be yourself. ويعني I take the quote of the famous person, Albert Einstein, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Share your knowledge in class, offer help to colleague, of course. احنا هنا يعني you are finished quickly with the coursework, and we will go through the research a bit in brief, and then we will go to the publication. So why plan a research project? طبعا a research project is always planned to, as I always say, we fulfill a gap of information. في gap of information, and we are filling this gap by doing this research. And this is the dream. إن أنت are bridging a gap in information by this fancy bridge. But unfortunately, and it happens sometimes due to our problems outside of our hand, that this fancy bridge would be spoiled, and the dream becomes a nightmare. And the bridge looks now as such. We don't want your thesis or your research to be as Kobri Abu Ainaba as such. You plan a research project. You choose a topic that interests you, be it in chemistry, be it in physics, be it in biology. The first thing that you have to do is to identify the problem you want to search upon, perform a comprehensive literature search. And as I always tell my students, 1 hour in the library would save you 1 month in the lab. So be sure to do the comprehensive literature search at this stage, revise it, and maybe after doing the literature, you can revise the research question before you step in the lab formulating your hypothesis. Very often nowadays, you have to look very carefully about how, in different disciplines, of course, and I cannot judge everyone, how the data is collected, what type of statistics will be used. And these are getting to be very critical things you should look for when doing your experiment. Ethical approvals, of course. And speaking about statistics, especially for biologists, a big dilemma or a big challenge is determining the sample size. And the sample is something from the population. And if you want to say today that the COVID pandemic is over, we have to, unfortunately, maybe screen the whole population, which is impossible to do. So what we would do, we would take a sample. Hopefully one day this pandemic would be over, and we analyze this sample. So you have to use power analysis and statistics to be sure that the sample is a representative of the population. And there are formula that you can use to tell you whether it's right or wrong. Of course, again, determining the sample size is very important, especially in all biology major, be it working on plants, insects, or humans. And I see it a lot in submissions. Before stepping in the lab, you have to identify all the necessary equipments, like you go shopping. So you have to be, and you're gonna cook tonight your dinner, you have to go shopping, getting all what you need from the supermarket. State all experimental conditions. We have variables in any experiment without going into details. If we can measure and control this variable, which is the best, we call it a factor. If we can measure it but cannot control, if we can measure it but cannot control, it's a covariate. If we cannot measure nor control, it's a disturbance. And I will quote a saying not from mine, but from an analytical chemist professor at Faculty of Pharmacy. He used to say, if you're doing an experiment and you have a butterfly stopping beside you, record that. Maybe this is the reason why the experiment failed. And I find that this is a big problem in our students, that we don't know how to record experiments. Although we are أحفاد فراعنة, ancestors of the Pharaoh. And one of the main reasons that the Pharaoh civilization lived was because of the excellent recording. Again, if you want to, I will visit this one. If you want to get a flower from a plant, you put the fertilizer, the pot size, the water, and the light exposure. Some of them are controlled. You can control the fertilizer, the pot size. So these are factors. You can control the water as well and measure it. Light exposure you cannot control, but you can measure. But if it rains heavily, you might not be able to control or to measure. So this would be a disturbance. In having a protocol, I will always urge as well that we look for things that are simple but not simpler, meaning that try not to find something that is too complicated that can at the end make you lose the output. Look for simple protocols that are valid, that has been validated. And this is Einstein. Of course, again, in doing after doing our experiment, I attended the last night talk about publication quality figure, which is indeed important in the publication. And there are so many programs nowadays that help you to develop nice figures and statistical measures. He is the father of statistics, by the way. طبعا people of the new generation, I'm sure that now, maybe when I was your age, beginning in graduate school, I would never heard about bioinformatics, بس احنا دلوقتي we are in the world of numbers والdata sets كبرت, and we should learn bioinformatics. I urge you to dig in that field. We no longer are gonna use this way for dealing with data sets. So data mining, as I think, there is always data and there is always information. And I have seen in many labs or students that they have the data, but they don't have the information. Exactly like the Apple and Isaac Newton. He saw the data and he got the information. So to extrapolate from data into valuable information, you have to practice as well data mining and data analysis or machine learning. And these are now more available and more free. They just want some thoughts and time that you devote for. Bioinformatics, of course, is top and top. طيب, احنا دلوقتي we are finished with the research, and you were asked to present your research in a seminar to defend your thesis, and I will give you tactics, and these things can apply بقى لأي lecture you would give, lecture, scientific lecture, هتدرس lecture, how to present. As I always say, present as an anchor and not as an instructor. وده اسمه Con O'Brien, was very famous in the United States, and I don't want to go in detail. I had once an experience in I made a movie exam for students. One was made by myself and another one was made by a TV anchor close enough. And I realized that the student answered the one from the TV anchor better. They are better than instructors. Tell it as a story. Explain your research always as a story. It is sad, but people are always interested in investing in stories. Practice to be a storyteller. everything. يعني you're coming to your classroom, tell it as a story. Your student and audience would much appreciate you. Yeah. طبعا دول they are very famous, known worldwide, Snow White, Cinderella. And I'm not asking that we are going to convert our science into, but have it comparable. بحيث in a matter that they would like to hear it more than once. احنا we would always like to read or listen or watch Snow White. Being a storyteller is not an easy thing, and you have to think before you step in the lecture, by the way. As I always think in my lecture, it's exactly like a series أو المسلسلات أو الأفلام. It should have a beginning and introducing the topic. Then you reach the climax, the top of the topic, and then you go at the end and conclude. So you have to think to organize your lecture as such. يعني now I will start to ask you questions to see. And having a theme, sorry, a theme presentation is a must. What do I mean by theme? It's gonna be more memorable, simple, and practical. I will show you an example. Look at the slide, please. بصوا عليها. And pay attention. Okay, this is the first slide. Now we have a second slide. Look at the second slide. Pay attention. And now I have a question. How many shapes was on each slide? Can anyone tell me on the chat for a minute if anyone can answer it? Yalla, we have 39.
The first was one.
First one was how much?
One sheet.
Can you write it in the chat? I don't know why I don't see the chat thing here. Maybe Muhammad see.
الشات يا دكتور.
اه
عندنا فاطمة محمد كتبت 7، علاء
7.
سكران 6،
صح.
أياد
طب
7، عبد الله 6.
كويس. طيب هو the first slide had consistency in the pattern, that was easier to remember. The second slide had no consistency. Try when you make your slide that they have a theme, a consistency. People wouldn't يعني get distracted easily. The consistent theme to a presentation means it's easy for the audience to remember and to engage. يعني, as I always think, I propose to my students every lecture I step inside. This is my duty. And I'm proposing to you today. And if the presentation was a dynamic presentation, I think that the student would agree upon the proposal. Sorry. فعندنا we have in Egypt the famous quote for Lazorti تألق بمجوهراتك and I call it تألق بمحاضراتك. طبعا احنا we as academics we suffer a lot nowadays from student exhaustion, from audience exhaustion, and you have to switch theme or pass or do something different in the middle. يعني there are so many things that can be done, but to tell you the thing that I found to be يعني very, especially in undergrad, very convenient, and it works out, giving bonus in class for students who are participating actively. So you ask a question and then you give extra grade, and this would make the student really engaged in your lecture. من الحاجات كمان اللي هي in يعني of course unfortunately this is post the pandemic اللي هي body language. We have seen many cases where the instructor sits or doesn't move, and this might as well bring a sort of distraction for the student. And what I think of that we should have a body language, smile, a movement, an eye contact, يعني but not to gaze too much. ما نخوفهمش يعني. If you look at all politicians, they do have body language for sure. Businessmen, they do have. People who stands out in the media, they do have their body language. And she is Angela Merkel, and these are the typical body languages. By the way, this thing, putting the fingers together, is believed to relieve the stress from the body, drop the stress يعني. And this has been me since I have really started teaching 20 years ago, my first time. I think of teaching as such, as playing tennis or ping pong, meaning that you're not alone in your lecture, and your partner, your rival, are the students. And if you don't consider the students in the game is over. Of course, we have to master our students today. We have attentive, we have inattentive audience, students thinking of game, Fortnite, PlayStation, and we have to, and he is or she is or it is my biggest enemy in classroom, the cell phone. Once you see the students opening the cell phone, he is not interested in what you're saying. Where as well, over the years, can anyone knows who are these are who? These are the audience of Kulthum concerts, as we all know. But over the years, the what I'm saying that you expect the students to sit as such like in the 60s, this would not happen. So you have to reach a compromise and know how to deal with your students in the 2021. So in 2021, before giving a lecture, you have to know your audience. Unfortunately, I didn't get to know your backgrounds today, and I hope I did well. You have to be ready and you have to be excited about your group. If you lose the excitement, trust me, it's very hard to deliver anything for anyone. Yeah. And this is my tip in 2021 for all of you. And maybe some of you know it. It's called the aha moment or the eureka. I got it. Simply, this is when Archimedes discovered his theory. He said, I got it. And the student needs to say it in his lecture, in your lecture. This is the point where you reach the tip and the student get to know that he benefited something new from your lecture, and only you can say it. And you have to think of an aha moment in your lecture. The type of information that the student would be satisfied from your presentation. So be sure to have an aha moment in every lecture. The best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. Of course, we have to practice data visualization if you want to have good lectures, not good papers, as yesterday was quoted. Yani, I think of lectures more important. And you have to pay, and there are so many, by the way, I use PowerPoint only, and it helps enough. Yeah. You don't need to go beyond that. And he is Abraham Lincoln, and he had a quote, if you want to test a man character, give him power. When I change the quote and I say give him PowerPoint, meaning what? This is me, myself, yani if I were to step, I don't teach, by the way, but this biochemistry, yani, and maybe students know, but I'm giving an example out of my arena. If I were gonna explain atherosclerosis for my students and how the arteries get blocked, the oxidation of LDL, then the attraction of the macrophages, the foam cells, cytokines, and then blocking of the artery at the end. And this is how I would explain for my students the progression of atherosclerosis. But this is not how I would explain it for my student as well. I had a case where long ago I asked my students to present on a topic in the best and the worst way, the same group. So this is their work, not my slide, actually, from food chemistry. And a second, let me admit, Muhammad would, anyhow. Okay. So this is a slide that they have made and versus in the best way that they have made as well. يعني we very often hear about the term drug abuse, and there is also kid abuse, and I call it the PowerPoint abuse. We have abused the PowerPoint, turning it into a teaching, into a book. And this is how it is. We put the slide as we take the text, put it as such, and we go to the lecture and we read. I myself يعني think that even in the old time when I was a student, when we didn't have any computer and it was someone who was writing from scratch, it was better than that. So we need to stop the abuse of the PowerPoint. يعني to tell you PowerPoint, this is my perspective, maybe not 100% right, but this is me. I think of PowerPoint as such, as the street ads. They have to be catchy, informative, and to the point. Yani you are taking the car on Nile University today, and the car is moving fast on the bridge. And if the ad is not informative, we will not remember anything. We remember that in PowerPoint, less is more. And this is what we cover for the students in the lecture. This is what the exam comes. But trust me, this is what they remember. So let's give them the less that they need to remember at the end. And if you insist on the more and having your lectures looking as such, يعني don't get offended بقى من turnout to students that they will escape your lecture or fall asleep. As I always think in research, if you can't explain your research to a fifth grader, you don't know what you're saying. I was fortunate once to attend a lecture for a Nobel laureate in physics, and I was expecting it's going to be very boring, but it turned out to be very exciting because he simplified very well. Again, science, even if you're speaking to your colleague, start from scratch, it would reach. And maybe with that, you have your brand in teaching and know your brand. So now we are at the end and we have 20 minutes. We will talk about paper writing, and this can take a whole day, by the way, and I have a whole session for it, but I will cut it short within the whole story. As I mentioned before, we are going for the tips. Now it's time to write your work. So you are submitting to the journal and be prepared for the review process. يعني once upon a time, in the night time, you stay till late, like myself last night, and you have a paper, and you press on this button, submit. And after pressing the submit button, it goes to the editor, the managing editor of the journal, who decides whether or not to have your paper rejected or go to the review. And nowadays, and since years, because of the fact that reviews are very, very limited and they don't want to spend much time, nowadays editors decide that they give the best paper to the reviewers. So as like the bottleneck, if you manage to escape this bottleneck, you have much more chance nowadays. So the reviewing process can be with you, but you have to pass this bottleneck nowadays, especially in good journals, yeah. So then it goes to under review by peer reviewing process, and you get 3 decisions: reject, revision, or accept. If it's a revision, which is the typical case, yani, you are asked to resubmit after revising your work, and then you come up with a decision, can be accept or reject. If rejected, there is something some people don't know much about. It's called appeal, but it's not an easy thing. It has to be very well written, where you appeal to the editor at the end, the managing editor or the editor-in-chief. اللي هو equally exactly in Egypt to محكمة النقض. يعني you get a verdict and then you appeal to the verdict by going to محكمة النقض. This is not my slide, but the quote is mine. As you can see, that publication is not a friendly journey, and not everyone is going to your side in the review process for many, many reasons. But I always have this quote I made, resist temptation for a quick publication. For recognition, it can come only from diligent dedication. So you don't want to have a paper every month or every week, every day, unless that you are prolific enough. يعني, but what I mean, put effort in your paper so that they would live. And يعني always the case, we see ourselves or our production, our outputs as such. يعني I wrote this paper and I see it as such from my own view. But the reviewers see it as such as well. And you have to be, انت بقى, your job, if it is as such, to prevent that before passing to the reviewer. Find the mistakes by yourself. A paper is judged exactly as I mentioned, like a court in action, like Ahmed Zaki. And this is the process. The process is not similar to the Egyptian court, but exactly similar to the American court system, if you don't know it. فأنت the متهم or the مؤلف, the author who has the paper in hand, So we will give color and we will give roles. You are defending your paper. You don't hire a lawyer to defend it. You are defending your case on your own. And then it is judged by the jury or the reviewers who will argue for or against the paper. But who renders the final decision are not the jury, but rather the editor of the journal, the associate and then the managing editor. And editors typically, to tell you, they don't make their decision based on votes, but on arguments. And I will explain in a minute. So if two reviewers said no, but one said yes, and he is convinced with the yes, he can go with the yes. He has to be convinced. It's not like counting ballots or votes. And this is very important, and we have to be realistic, because sometimes you say it was reviewed and all of them were agreeing and one was disagreeing, and he went with the disagree. Maybe it convinced him more. As the thing that it's not my fame, but Cairo University fame, as I always say, it's a very well recognized accomplishment of Cairo University. And I have a movie for JAR, by the way. I made a couple of years celebrating the 10th birthday of JAR. Maybe one day I give it once at Cairo University. JAR is a publication made by Cairo University, and most of the editors are from Cairo University. Now we have expanded a lot abroad. JAR has an impact factor of 7, and it is indexed now in all databases, including Medline last month. So it's a top journal in Africa and the Middle East. So I'm one of the people who send you this letter, which you receive at night as well, decision on your submission. And when you read, your heart starts to kick, 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 kick. And anyone knows the chemical? Adrenaline. So you are worried whether it's going to be what. So better have it as such as an acceptance and not a rejection. And I will give you some recipes, very few tips. And again, this can be another long discussion. It has a lecture on its own of the publishing process. Again, if it's rejected, consider your case realistically. Again, you can appeal, but appeal, to be realistic, are not given the highest priority. So it has to be a strong appeal. And to tell you, there are so many infamous misses in science. Krebs cycle, the TCA cycle, biochemist knows, that got the Nobel Prize, was rejected. The beta decay was also rejected without review. And to prove it, I think this letter, maybe some of you have heard, this is the letter Mr. Krebs received from Nature, and stating that we regret, and we ask you to submit it elsewhere. And he submitted elsewhere, and he got the Nobel Prize. So we do our mistakes as well. How to appeal against a rejection to the editor? I would always think if you present more data, it's going to be the best solid evidence. Provide more data to prove your hypothesis, then the appeal might be accepted easily. New data. How to appeal? Present new data, point out possible errors that has happened in a polite way, detail your contribution of the work to the field. My history with the appeal, actually it went lower than that, but I submitted 2 out of 6 and 2 did work out at the end. How not to appeal? Sometimes you don't know how to deal with editors the right way, and I know it's hurting, but be aware that editors never forget. So a statement about your reputation and number of papers published, you don't know who I am, celebrity endorsement, attacking referees, even if they attack you. Don't attack them yourself. You would look better. A general statement or cosmetic rewriting of the paper and then we submit, overselling results. And we have to know how to deal nowadays with reviewer reports in a cautious way. What is called the famous rebuttal list, as I told, أو بيسموه الauthor response letter يعني. ده جواب شهير is a famous historic letter, by the way. لأن this historic letter was written by Albert Einstein, sending it to the editor. I will take you a few minutes to read yourself. 1 minute. Basically, طبعا before that, editor used to judge the paper on their own and they don't send it out to reviewer. What happened with this editor that he sent it to the reviewer, who Einstein got mad and sent this letter. I see no reason to address these erroneous comment and I prefer to publish elsewhere. طبعا ده Einstein. We cannot do like Einstein. Unlike Einstein, we have to go through the peer review process to make it efficient, effective, and stable. لأن هي دي الموديل الوحيد that is practical till now. فيعني this is an appeal letter I wrote couple of years. It didn't work, but appealing to the editor. First, thanks for handling our review. We always respect reviewer and editorial decision, but felt that both reviewer find good scientific merit in our review that provide blah, blah, blah. We provide here in detailed response to reviewer comments and are willing to prepare a submission as this review we feel is worth to be published. And you respond to every single point. And if you notice that when I respond in a different font style. So I write the reviewer comment in bold, and then I respond in unbold or in a different color. This would make the editor easy to follow what you really did. Try to help the editor. Maybe he would not send it for review, or try to convince him that you did your best. What I see very common in appeal letter or in review, in response to reviewer, that the authors say done, and that's it. This is not enough nor convincing. So and this would help you at the end get it to an acceptance. Yeah, I will tell you a story, and this is not my story, but my kid Ali. He visited Germany a couple of years, and of course, you know, in Germany they have flowers on the balcony outside, and he liked that, and he thought, why not have the same in our balcony? So we went back home and got the idea. Ali got the pot, and we put the seeds. We did the watering in hope of getting the flower. That's what happened, that no flower came out and Ali was sad. If you look at it, we did everything. We did the fertilizer, the pot size, the watering, and the light. But maybe that this recipe was not in the right proportion to get the flowers. And the same thing happened in publishing papers. So these are the factors to get a flower. So what are the factors for which we can get a paper, not saying Science or Nature, but in a good journal? Top and top are the soil or the good science that's gonna come out from the paper. So if it's a bad science, no way it would work out. Yeah. Good result illustration, how you're gonna interpret the results, as I mentioned before, and the discussion, how to show that you are not a technician with all due respect, as many papers get rejected because they say that results are presented in a very descriptive way, just up and down, but without any scientific interpretation. Of course, this comes with good writing skills as well, and good luck. How do we define a successful paper? A good flower by the aroma or the odor. And I'm a food chemist, by the way. And this is typically how we judge publication by impact factor. So the three things that we judge a paper by is going to be the author, the journal, and the impact factor, and of course, the work presented. And we live in a world of number, and we go by the impact factor straight away. Although, by the way, I dislike that a bit, and it has its own negative sides, not to go into detail, but we are going to a culture of numbers. And even I have made a lecture calling I'm not just a number. The study that I attended the talk from Web of Science or Clarivate Analytics is a big global database nowadays, and the one that published the impact factor, issued the impact factor, by the way. And they said that in a German journal, they discovered that they had papers in one issue that were opposite to each other. And in this case, ما نقدرش نحكم by the impact factor. لأن هو impact factor is the same for the same journal, and the issues are in the same journal. So they look at citation in the future. This can help you judge which argument was better. And this is an important thing you should look at when you look at a protocol. And I was defending my thesis last night, and one said that there is a method that can be used and not as you have mentioned. And I told him, yes, there is one method, but if there is just one method in the whole literature, it tells you that, especially if it's a common thing, that this method might not be reliable. Good science lives, good science survives, and it survives through citation and repetition. But if you bring up something that no one could ever replicate, it will never be seen again in science. But if you look for a protocol for your work, and you notice that this protocol was cited twice, then you be cautious, especially if it's an old protocol. So looking at citation can help you judge science quality. Where to submit, and many cases that you are rejected because you have visited the wrong journal. Yeah, so you have to be sure that this is the theme of the journal that you are submitting for. There are so many websites. Elsevier has one, Springer has one, but this one I favor, maybe since I used to use, it's called Jane, and Jane can be remembered from Jane Eyre, the famous story. But our Jane is called Journal Author Name Estimator. You simply paste your abstract, and it's gonna pop up with all the suggestion of the best journal you should think of. But something very important, to look at the years, because many journals change the strategy over the year. There is one journal in mind, Food Chemistry per se. Every year they announce the new field that they would like to publish in. So if you see that the journal published in 10 years ago, it doesn't seem they will take their work in 2021. So preparing your paper, what makes a good paper? Of course, gravity was proved by Apple. If you're going to prove it by Orange, this is not good enough. And the important question, publishing, whether you are looking for quality or quantity. Both are important, but I vote more for quality. We are not a copy machine. So this is we are toward the end, getting close, and we are on track. And in my contract as a food chemist, I tell you not to eat popcorn, but eat apple fruit. And as well, and we're in Ramadan, and I know that we drink juices a lot, but I tell you what, juices are mostly sugars. If you want to get the benefit of the fruit, eat it as a whole. It has much, much more value, the fibers, the phytonutrient. Maybe one night we can meet for a lecture on that. So eat it and don't squeeze it. Maybe I'm sure that some of the people attending are pharmacists. I think of the apple as the brand and the juice as the generic. With a famous quote called "An apple a day keeps the doctor away." So the rat is asking, should I eat the apple? Yes, don't squeeze it. So now back to your seats, and from where to get good ideas and write upon them. I have this favorite cartoon, maybe. You can unmute and tell me what do you think of this cartoon in words.
Think outside the box.
Yes, exactly. We have to think outside the box. Really, we have so many problems. Think outside the box to solve them. This is the most important slide I have in the whole lecture. I always think of. But this is what I struggle in correcting my students' writing. You have your hands. Please shake your hands. Let your hands shake each other. Exactly think of it like when you write. When you write a sentence, be sure that sentences are connected. Before you end the sentence, it has to begin a new sentence related to the previous one. What happens is that we write in a very sporadic way. So we really don't get to tell what is what. You have to really pay attention when you write that everything is indeed connected to each other. Paragraphs are connected, sentences are connected, sections are connected. This would make the flow easily, and the reader would like your paper. And the first reader who would read your paper is the reviewer. And تعايز الريفيور يحب القراية. Make your sentences connected. I will give you an option, and here you can, because I don't see the chat, I will give you 3 sentences in a very gentle topic, على القهوة على فكرة, on coffee. And I would like you to tell me which one you think is the best way to put this information. So please read and take a minute or 2. 1, 2, or 3. Read the 3 and tell me which one is better. طيب, which sentence you would vote for, 1 ولا 2 ولا 3؟
2.
صح. كويس. حد عنده رأي تاني ولا؟ If you look at 2 connected everything and in a short way. 3, the problem with 3, it was too long, redundant a bit. والone had no connection. فافتكروا ان to connect your sentence so the lamp would light. وبريك and try to have short sentences, not these compound longs. أنا بشوف sentences 6 lines in يعني this is way too much. فbreak your compound sentence into simpler sentence and remove any unnecessary word. We are scientists, we are not novel writer. We have to have يعني it's not an easy thing. Every يعني the best writing when you feel you cannot remove a single word. مش عارف تشيل حاجة. So you have reached the best you can write. We'll stick to the point again. Don't go rambling and reiterating the take-home message. طبعا أي paper عايزة cover letter, والcover letter is important because this is what the editor reads at the beginning. And the cover letter is not an abstract, it's not a summary. It's the significance of the work and the novelty of your work. And this should be, so it's not a copy-paste abstract, by the way. And this is I give you an example of a cover letter of mine. Again, I highlight the significance of the study and the novelty, and not just a summary of the results. You address the editor, the title, the author. Typical anatomy of any paper بقى طبعا, we'll go through quick. We have the introduction, which is general. The bottleneck of the paper is your result, which is very small part of the whole literature. And then you go back and expand and discuss your result with others. And this is gonna be the discussion. It's always good at the end of the introduction to write up the goal of the paper and the end of your introduction. And this is gonna state the key to the whole paper. So it is the last sentence in your introduction describing the goal of your paper. And writing the goal also should be written in a good way. I give you 2 examples and I would like you to tell me the difference, which one is better. So the first one, the purpose of the study is to see if there is a difference in the fish and the 3 parts of the stream, or to test the hypothesis that habitat complexity was correlated with fish species diversity and density. And I think that we vote for the second. طبعا, as mentioned, results have to be amended by figures and tables, and I think this was raised last night. Statistical analysis if needed. دي ظاهرة شهيرة. It's called the salami slicing. Have anyone heard of the salami slicing before? No? طيب, salami slicing is typically that people want to milk the data, but more go overextend and over milk it. This one I have seen many, by the way. It's simply cutting off paper into papers. And I'll show you. So instead of cutting your salami thick, you cut too thin to have more and more and more. But at the end, it is the same. I have one case. So instead of one paper, let me show you. This is from JAR actually, happened 2 years ago. So we had in one night the same author exactly, and if you look at the time, 20 minutes exactly difference. It's the same topic, but just measuring different parameters each time. So he splitted his one paper into 3 papers, and he is the same author, with all due respect, looking at RBC. And of course, you know what was my decision? I rejected the 3 because I felt he's not someone who has really science. He's trying to propagate his science, but not to present a real case. I don't do like Mr. X. When you present results, especially in a research paper, we tend to sometimes be more qualitative than quantitative. And we had a famous radio show, maybe some of you have heard of, the old generation.
قل ولا تقل. قل ولا تقل.
This famous radio show used to tell us how to speak Arabic, and I quote it now of how to write science. So if you say the treatment was more effective, or better, the treatment was 50% more effective, this is better in writing. So be quantitative. I'm sorry. Discussion is something that can be written in every way, and this reflects your honesty, by the way. بميت وش زي ما بيقولوا. Whether you're going to hide other people's results, not agreement with yours. And this is going to be the critical part, reflecting how scientist you are and are not a technician, as I always think. يعني I quote some examples of papers that are very basic that we published over the years in good journals, but it was just due to the discussion of the work. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been published in these journals. So key to successful writing is simplicity, clarity, and what are the cardinal sins of authors? Repetition, wordiness. I have a student of mine, I wouldn't tell her name, and I tell her, I don't want Shakespeare writing, and I have science writing. She has this idea of making these complex terms, and I dislike that, yeah. Lack of clarity, especially we are not native speakers, فbetter we stick to the simple language, Ethical misconduct بقى in research. طبعا في authorship abuse happen a lot in collaboration, and you have to know it maybe early enough that you contribute to the work and you are removed from the work. This is it. Or that they bring someone who didn't do anything to the work and it's a gift authorship. Or that if there is a problem in the paper and hopefully not a retraction, we refuse to hold responsibility for the mistakes after publishing. So these are the dark side of the. The Vancouver Protocol put the rules and said that someone to be on the paper, he has to contribute in the concept of the paper or in the revising of the paper, drafting it, writing it, and he should see it at the end as well. طبعا, this is something not to go into politics, but it happens that sometimes you are the student and he is the mentor and you did the work, but you should be at the beginning, by the way, and we switch roles. And when you submit abroad, they understand that the corresponding author, the last one, is the principal investigator, not the student. And of course, the big fight may be sometimes who is the corresponding author. And if you're out from the paper because your contribution doesn't really reach that, it's exactly like الكراسي الموسيقية, the musical chairs. If you're out, you can go to the right place in the paper, which is the acknowledgement. I see actually that the movie acknowledgement is the best one till now, and we can adopt it in. I'm not sure if this model can be adopted in science, but the good thing about it that they give credit to every single person who did anything. So, and nowadays we see that in journals that they ask for author roles. Of course, plagiarism is a big problem nowadays, and you have to watch for your text cross-matching. It can lead to a fast rejection without acceptance anymore. I don't want to go into more. This is my idea about plagiarism. It came out from social pressure. زي أحمد زكي. This movie is called, forgot now, إني لا أكذب ولكني أتجمل. He was thinking he was not lying, but in reality he was. But it was the social pressure, and the plagiarism can be science pressure as well. So there are so many reasons for plagiarism. I will not give you the and this is not my slide, and you have to give courtesy for others. My dear colleague, Dr. Shirot Al-Ahmadi and Shams University. And she believes that plagiarism reasons are the pressure of the workload, the pressure to succeed. We don't have the nature of plagiarism, طبعا, especially us, we copyright programs, etc. Cultural factors. And I think the number 4 is the most important because it's easy. And there are two buttons in our computer, the copy and the paste. And I always, when I start writing, I remove them from my brain and start writing because copy and paste might lead you into problems. And the rat is giving you his tip at the end, use your own words and live happily ever after. So these are the bottleneck for, so wrap it up, I conclude. In science, you feel it's personal, but it's not. Accept criticism and learn from criticism would help you to succeed, and it is a key to success. Time management, getting to know the difference between what is urgent, what is important, and what is both urgent and important. We need to manage our time, especially in this crazy world. It's not about how much you spend your time, but how you spend it. We all had our failures, we all had our rejections, we all had our many rejections, but we learn from them. And this is my really important tip. Research is not a competition. You are not competing with anyone but yourself if it is going to be, and you have your own journey. If you're going to look on everyone, you will not do much. I never ever myself looked at anyone what is published, unless that I'm interested in the work, but not to follow people. What did you publish today? يعني of course we have to give a lot of credit for ladies in science. It was a talk I gave a couple of years ago in the Women in Science. Of course, we have to acknowledge that they are not equal. Famous figures. Always, yani we will end, we will leave, it's always good to be a positive role model for others. Yani always put that in mind. I'm not gonna teach only, I'm gonna teach in a way that they teach same like I did, do same, I mean, in a positive way. حسنات, yani we need that. How much effort you put, how much you get back. And if you want to find yourself a place on top for recognition in publishing, find yourself a place on top. We give a big round of applause. The rat escaped like we all wish. And the last tip, the rat is telling you at the end to remember after escaping, along that road, don't forget your human side. You will reach, you will reach. There is no reason to be aggressive, take something that you really don't deserve in thinking that it would help you reach quicker. If you have a hobby, and don't do like me, yani, myself, by the way, if you have a hobby, interest, relationship, nourish them, don't kill them. I didn't do that, by the way, yani, I am a workaholic to be. But these are things that I lost by time, myself, yani. Tell you, I didn't show any signs from my work, but I show you something different at the end. I used to be a painter when I was young in college. And these are my old paintings at my home. And I forgot completely. So now my kids, when they come and ask me, Daddy, ارسم لنا حاجة, I would do it terribly. Yani maybe not bad, but I lost the talent because I didn't continue the hobby. But I like it when I put it in my slides. So these are my, I don't have much. These are my paintings. Some of them are plagiarized, by the way. Speaking about plagiarism, this one is. And tell you, this is the famous iceberg, the Titanic. And why did Titanic smash into the iceberg? Because Titanic didn't see except the iceberg, the top of the iceberg, but didn't see what's below, and it smashed. And this is the same in academia. We see the tip of successful people, but we don't see what's in beside, what underneath the ocean, the dedication, the hard work, the good habits, the failure, the sacrifice. And Rome wasn't built in a day. This is the end for my movie in the morning on academia. I stick to time, I'm happy. And now I'll show you, and I would like you to remind me what each ممثل or each event represent to see how much you have captured. So who is he? حد عارفه? From the people left. ازيك يا حبيبي الله يكرمك. Huh? He is the rat escaping the bottleneck. Tom Hanks type. ايه مالكم؟ The Tom Hanks.
الصيام مأثر يا جماعة.
باين. Tom Hanks writing aha moment, qualitative not quantitative, or the opposite, plagiarism, tip of the iceberg, and this was my movie for life in academia to you to write. So يعني I hope ان I was successful in delivering it in a simple way. He is someone I didn't like myself, Yusuf Shaheen. I felt that his way was not simple enough to the audience. Yeah. So and thank you. I'd like to thank the people who contributed to my career, of course, people abroad at the Leibniz Institute, and biochemistry, marine ecology, my Texas Tech University, and my dear colleague at Cairo University. Yani 3 people I remember in my career, my advisor, Paul Perret, yani he put the engine on, I think, and this lady is a great lady, my predecessor in NMR, and she taught me a lot, and the family, because they have endured so many travel time. And I have a second family. These are my dear colleague and lab group who celebrated a couple of years ago an event, and I value them as part of my family. actually I spend more time with them than my real family. So with that, I thank you all and open for questions if any.
شكرا جزيلا لدكتور محمد، كانت محاضرة أكثر من رائعة
الله يخليك.
ومفيدة جدا. شكرا جزيلا لحضرتك.
الله يخليك.
في سؤالين بعد إذن حضرتك.
طب اقراهم لان انا مش شايف
حاضر. من علاء سكران بيقول regarding appealing a letter to the journal after manuscript rejection, does scholarship rejection would be followed by a similar appealing letter?
لا, I don't think so at all. لا. I'm not in I have been in these committees. I have never seen it. لا, scholarship I don't think that they are subject to appeal, unfortunately. لا. like زي الجرانتس same way. يعني هي البيبرز بس اللي فيها الحته دي.
تمام. طيب في الابيلينج ليتر احنا بنخليه زي اللي هو الفايل اللي هو response to reviewer comments ولا بتكلم بشكل تاني خالص؟
لا, يعني it's 90% exactly gonna be that thing. هو بالظبط بس هتعمل ريسبونس لكل حاجه. وطبعا يعني you have to زي ما بتقول عليها يعني اذا انت you're not sure if it's gonna work. بس at the beginning you have to put arguments why you think that you deserve to be that this decision should be appealed. يعني you have to put some thoughts at the beginning. لان انت you're not responding to a revision, you are responding to a rejection. It's gonna be يعني of course هتعمل you will respond to every item. But it would be you have to present at the beginning why you think that there is a misunderstanding in the decision. Paragraph.
تمام. السؤال الثاني من آية كمال تسأل how can I get a research question؟
هو ده أصعب حاجة يعني. لا طبعا يعني first of all يعني as I said يعني to be realistic يعني أنا في رأيي لو أنا ما عنديش I think review papers are a good thing. فمثلا أنت شغالة أي مثلا في النانو formulation مثلا يعني you want to nano formulate this drug. then you look for review that have been recently published. لأن الريفيو بتقول لك إيه اللي اتعمل and what hasn't been done. it would help you to avoid repeating work يعني. فاهماني؟ فالريفيو papers are very helpful. I myself find them. وعلى فكرة عشان كده بيحصل لهم citations كتير لأن الناس بتستغل تقراهم and then they cite it later. And of course يعني reading and to be critical about things, asking why and from mentorship يعني you develop these skills but you have to develop the asking idea. يعني يبقى عندك الباترن بتاع ليه ده على طول مش من غير ليه. والريفيو بيساعده جامد طبعا.
تمام جدا. طيب هي في ليها كومنت تاني بتقول reading everything to try to get a question is almost impossible. فازاي اللي انا اعمل extraction للحاجة اللي هي المعلومات اللي ممكن تساعدني اعمل formulation للكويشن بتاعي؟
ما هو برضه نفس الشيء يعني. هو الفكره when you read a lot you develop these skills by يعني انا هقول لك حاجه. انا دايما الطلبه ما اعرفش حد فيهم موجود ولا دعاء حد منهم يقول لي يا دكتور محمد when you do a search you identify the hits very quickly than us. ليه؟ لان انا I did it so many times. ما انت you have to put time يعني هي ريسبي بتاع التايم. وزي ما بقول يعني لو انت you are really in shortage وعايزه تتاكدي انك يعني you need ideas read review articles they will help you. ان هم بيكونوا بالظبط عباره عاملين زي ما احنا بنقول عليهم يعني مع اني مش بحب اللفظ ده زي كبسوله المراجعه زي اللي بيعملوها دلوقتي في الامتحانات لانها بتسمرايز everything for you but this one you need to read critically بقى. وطبعا review articles in good journals يعني not in poor ones يعني برضه صح؟
مظبوط يا دكتور. That's all.
طيب
شكرا جزيلا لحضرتك.
شكرا لكم وبالتوفيق للشباب جميعا والى اللقاء ان شاء الله. شكرا دكتور محمد.
شكرا جزيلا لوقت حضرتك.
شكرا. مع السلامه.
مع السلامه. شكرا كل ضيوفنا ونشوفكم ان شاء الله في محاضرة بكرة.